All right, so now we're going to talk about the independent and dependent variable, but specifically how to graph them, right? So that is like the main focus of this lesson. So we've talked a little bit about independent and dependent variables. Um, so what does the word independent mean to you? And the word independent basically means that you're on your own, right? That you're kind of isolated from other things. And what does the word dependent mean to you? So dependent means that you actually rely on something, right? That you're not isolated, that you actually are reliant on something else. And so keep these in mind when we talk about independent and dependent variables, especially when we're talking about graphing them. All right. So variables are anything in an experiment that can be changed, right? And we've talked about this. So this is just like a little bit of review, but review is always a good thing when it comes to learning. Right? So the independent variable is a manipulated variable that the scientist purposely changes. For example, and this is something that we saw recently, changing the amount of water a plant gets affects its growth. Right? So right here you see that the independent variable in this case is and let me highlight that really quick for you right here, that the amount of water, basically the changing amount of water, right? That is what's changing every time is the amount of water that you're giving a plant, right? So in this case, this is the independent variable, the amount of water. The dependent variable is a responding variable, right? So it depends on the independent variable, and it is a responding variable that is in response to changes in the independent variable. And so we see right here again, the independent variable was the amount of water, right? But that affects the plant's growth, and it shows you right here affects its growth, right? And specifically right here for us, a dependent variable is the growth of the plant, right? That's what we're measuring. So the independent variable is the amount of water, and the dependent variable is the growth of the plant. Right. So right here we have a few other examples. So let's look at these together. Right here, a scientist studies how increasing a drug affects tumor growth. So in this case right here, which do you think is the dependent variable and which do you think is the independent variable? All right. A scientist studies how rat aggression is altered due to withholding affection. So in this case, which do you think is the independent variable and which do you think is a dependent variable? All right. And then finally, a scientist studies how sugar intake affects hyperactive behavior. So in this case, which Right, so in this case right here, a scientist studies how increasing a drug affects tumor growth. So the independent variable in this case, let me get this writing tool. The independent variable in this case is the drug, the increasing a drug. And so again, that could be like maybe giving 5 milligrams and 10 milligrams and 15 milligrams of a drug. And in doing so, right here, the increasing a drug, so the amount of drug a person is getting would be the independent variable. Right. But then it's talking about what is a dependent variable. Well, in this case, what is it that we're trying to measure? And the thing we're trying to measure here is the growth of the tumor, right? So if the drug is going to be effective, the more you give it, then the smaller the size of the tumor should be, right? The less it should grow. So in this case, the growth of the tumor would be the dependent variable. Then here, the next one, a scientist studies how rat aggression is altered due to withholding affection. So the thing that they're trying, so let's start with the independent variable again. In this case, what is it that is being changed throughout the experiment? And the thing that is being changed right here is the amount of affection or withholding affection from a rat, right? So withholding the affection, like are they giving it a little bit of affection, a medium amount of affection, a lot of affection? This right here is what is changing throughout the experiment. So this is an independent variable. But what is it that what is it that is affected by this affection? And in this case, it's going to be the aggression of the rat, right? So right here, this is a dependent variable. And again, what they're saying is that And what usually does happen actually is the less affection that a rat gets from its mother, then the more aggressive it is going to be, right? And so that's what they're measuring is the aggression levels of the rat, right? Is it going around biting other rats and, like starting fights with other rats? That is the thing that they're measuring is its aggression. And its aggression is dependent on the amount of affection, right? So the independent variable is the affection that they're given, and then the dependent variable is the aggression that they show. So the next one, a scientist studies how sugar intake affects hyperactive behavior. So the independent variable that they are changing throughout the experiment is the sugar intake, right? How much sugar that the subject is getting. So it could be like 5 milligrams, 10 milligrams, 15 milligrams, but it's changing every time, right? That is what is being changed throughout the experiment or manipulated. And what is it that they're trying to measure that is being affected by this? And in this case, it is hyperactive behavior, right? So usually what happens is the more sugar a subject gets, the more hyperactive it becomes. And so they're measuring right here hyperactivity levels. And so this is a dependent variable.